That's not just the sound of that first sip of Morning Joe. It's the sound of someone shopping for a car on Carvana from the comfort of home.
That's a good blend.
It's time to take it easy, like answering some easy questions to get pre-qualified for a car in minutes.
Talk about starting the morning right.
Just like customizing your terms so your car fits your budget. Visit Carvana.com or download the app to experience car shopping the way it should be. Convenient, comfortable. The comfort of your favorite seat is now your comfy car selling command center, thanks to Carvana.
It doesn't get any better than this.
Your favorite seat's the best spot in the house. Make it even better by entering your license plate or VIN and getting a real offer in minutes.
There really is no place like home.
And speaking of home, Carvana will pick up your car from yours after you finalize your offer. Visit Carvana.com or download the app and sell your car from your comfy place.
Beneath a blanket of clouds laden with sulfuric acid and other volatile compounds lies a rocky wasteland where surface temperatures are high enough to melt lead. From Earth, it is one of the brightest objects in our skies. Countless civilizations have closely followed the movements of our brilliant planetary neighbor. It has been the focus of human imagination since the beginning of recorded time, gathering a plethora of names from cultures long dead. Fantastic visions of what could lay beneath the all-encompassing cloud cover have swirled through the pages of science fiction and scientific literature. Even after discovering what was beneath the clouds was a heat-blasted hellscape, the planet still holds secrets that we are still slowly beginning to unlock. In 2017, a team of scientists reviewed atmospheric data that made a few heads turn after showing the presence of a certain gas that, on Earth, is normally present alongside life. This case file joined the theorists as they tried to keep their heads out of the extremely poisonous clouds and tried to keep their beers cold on the solar system's hottest planet in the search for life on Venus.
Welcome to Alien Theorists Theorizing Case File 232, Life on Venus. I'm Braden.
I'm Sal.
I'm Dan.
And I'm Andrew.
You heard it here first. There's a brand new alien race that's just been discovered on Venus.
Yeah.
Breaking news.
This was, of course, the Ron Pond poll pick.
Oh, my. Whoa.
Nice. All right. Nice. Off to a good
Poll
start.
pick.
Professional podcaster.
So, once a month.
We got to stress this right away here, like how important it is to get on Patreon because A, you get your own voice once a month to decide what we get to record, and B, Braden is wearing the same shirt 2 days in a row. He needs the money to buy another shirt, so please sign up for fucking Patreon.
Yes. Please.
Well, I gave Braden the benefit of the doubt. I just thought he owns two of that shirt.
No way, Jose. No way.
No.
Not a chance.
You guys know me too well.
I'm pretty sure it's even just flipped inside out, so it's not as stinky.
No, it's just hanging on the back of I just took it off and hung it on the back of the chair. After
Aired
last
it out
night.
a bit.
Yeah.
It's business attire.
No, this was strategic, and you will see why later. But if you want to get your voice heard and you want to pick, you can jump on our patreon.com/Alien Theorist Podcast, $10 tier and up. Get your voice heard and dictate where the show goes. We give you a range of topics to choose from, and the highest vote gets the last case file of the month. And this month, it is Life on Venus. So if it sucks, it's on you, the fans.
It's your fault. Choose your own adventure. Hopefully you chose right.
It usually comes down actually pretty close. Like I post 3 topics every month and to choose from in the poll. And then it's usually like 2 of them come out pretty close. Like it's within like 4 or 5 votes. So like, just so you know, if you're not on Patreon, like those 4 or 5 votes, they count. Like every vote counts, unlike some democracies.
Every vote does count here.
And
no voter fraud on Patreon.
The interesting thing about life on Venus is because, like, you know, forever, you know, we just were basically gave Venus the cold shoulder. We're like, nothing could live on that fucking hellscape, that, you know, goddamn hellfire acid planet. And then in what was 2020? Or was it 2019 where they were like...
2017 was when stuff started shaping up, and then they made the announcement in 2000, I think it would have been 18?
No, I think it was even later than that because we talked about it on Space News a couple of years ago.
That's what I thought too,
yeah.
And basically there's, you know, they're like, wow, there's, you know, there might be life in the atmosphere of Venus.
We'll get to it as we go farther on, but if you remember from a couple of years ago, phosphine gas, which on Earth can be a signal of
penguins.
Space penguins.
Well, I can't remember. Was
Venusian penguins?
It was basically it's the amount of phosphine gas, though, right? Because there could be phosphine gas from like volcanoes and that type of shit. But
right. So phosphine is a type of gas which has a extraordinarily short kind of shelf life. Like once it's exposed to oxygen, sunlight, those kinds of elements and stuff, it will degrade super fast. But during some reviewing of some of the data that we've collected on Venus over the years, a team of scientists went through it all, and they found that there seems to be a larger amount of phosphine gas present in the atmosphere of Venus that could potentially point towards there being some type of life on there. So we'll get to it. We'll get more into it as we go along. But
we'll get more into it. That we did touch on Space News, and we're going to get to it. But Venus, I mean, quick fact about Venus. One day is longer than one Venusian year. Isn't that crazy?
It does not move. It's very slow.
It just fucking barely turns.
Yeah, the worst fucking Monday in existence.
Well, like a complete revolution is what it's 200
Mondays. Am I right? You said that 367 times in the last couple of days. Fuck you.
243 days. Earth days.
Yeah, and then a year is 224 or 223.
It's been Monday for 200 days.
Does that make it kind of like a fucking, because basically it's going backwards essentially. Is it like the Benjamin Button planet? Do you go there and just get younger?
It's a good question.
It's
because it also, it's the only planet that doesn't rotate clockwise.
Yeah. It's weird.
So they think that sometime in its history it got knocked and it flipped around, like flipped upside down, and now it rotates the other way.
Yeah. So if we go by Superman, Superman rules,
maybe Superman actually fucked that planet up, and he
that was the trial. That was to see if it works.
Lois died on that planet. Spoiler.
Yeah, it's crazy. Super long days, the worst Monday morning in existence.
It's piss and acid rain.
Rain, sulfuric clouds, mainly carbon dioxide atmosphere, surface temperatures of like 450 plus degrees Celsius.
Just see somebody just like burning away, on the ground, and then an alien pops up and says, "This guy's got a case of the Mondays, eh?"
Yeah. Mondays, am I right? High five. Oh no, your skin's melting.
Venusian Dilbert.
Yeah.
But all these things we know about Venus now, we didn't know for a long time. So there was a lot of cool theories about potential life on Venus, and that's pretty much what this case file is going to be about.
Yeah. Like Brayden said, recently, and I'm probably like in the last couple of decades, our interest in Venus has cooled, but over the period of human history, recorded human history, Venus has been very influential in the kind of cultures around the world, because it actually it's a fairly interesting astral body, like the way it behaves in our night sky and our sometimes the morning sky.
A morning star, baby.
Yeah, people have always taken an interest in it. That it's always kind of been up there, and it's the second brightest object in our sky, next to the Polaris. So you have because the movements of Venus actually appear to be discontinuous. So it appears sometimes because of its proximity to the sun, it will actually, for days at a time, it would seem to disappear and then reappear on the horizon. So some cultures actually believe that it wasn't a single entity, but two.
And so
Idiots.
I think so you always had like there was this cool duality between it. Like this is where you get like Brayden said, you had the morning star or the light bringer. So sometimes when it would rise in the morning, it'd be in the morning on the horizon. It would be Lucifer, and then Vesper it'd be its evening aspect. According to the ancient Romans. Now, Venus and Jupiter were actually the first two planets to be observed with telescopes. Galileo used his early telescope to actually discover that Venus had phases just like our moon does. And then that proved that it was actually spherical and it was located closer to the sun than Earth was.
Was he burned at the stake the same way as like Copernicus or whatever those other dudes who said?
He had to I believe he had to recant his thing. They had him recant his statements,
because it was him. There was was Copernicus, and there was another dude, Tychonic or something. They both had
Tycho Brahe,
something like that. I'm trying to remember astronomy 101 class, but they both said that because religion would have you believe that everything revolved around Earth, and when people made these or presented these new scientific claims that. No, perhaps actually we'd go around the sun, and that's why we see phases of Venus and the like. They're like, you shall die.
Are you sure? As they're lighting the fucking cross.
Yeah.
Are you sure about that?
Sure?
Would you like one final
straight
chance?
to jail?
Because you're about to have a case of the Mondays real quick, buddy.
So the early telescopes that we had access to were, the basic, very optical telescopes, just bending light through a couple lenses and kind of what the human eye could see. That was all the information that you could gather by looking at some of these.
That wasn't the earliest telescope, Dan. You're forgetting about this one.
Right.
The old hand over the eye trick.
Yeah. Zoom
Everyone
in.
knows that enhances.
Focus a bit.
Double lens.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Get it right.
So what we could gather with just a visual on Venus is that you could see that Venus is just extraordinarily featureless because the entire pretty much surface of Venus is covered almost uniformly with cloud cover. So they couldn't see anything beyond those.
Not like the fun clouds that we have.
Yeah, they always thought of it as like it was a gaseous planet, like it wasn't a terrestrial body. Because you just by looking at it, you would think that there's no way this is not like a gas planet.
And so with that, once we were able to actually observe Venus and its kind of natural thing, and it's just like, it's covered in clouds. We can't get any more information. So interest waned a bit, except in the area of kind of like those scientists that were kind of theorizing about what it could be. Imaginations ran wild. Sci-fi authors had a ton of fun with Venus being this planet that was completely covered by clouds. So you could really put anything down there. They originally, there's tons of stories that are set on Venus, some by, authors like Edgar Rice Burroughs, who wrote Tarzan, and John Carter of Mars. And also H.P. Lovecraft did a couple ones who set ancient civilizations on Venus. One of the popular ones was they thought it was a jungle down there because you have all these clouds. And where do you normally find lots of clouds?
Above, a water-based planet like Earth.
A water-based planet, or, jungles and things like that. You go into some of the African jungles, South American jungles, where it's like, where there's all these trees and rainforests, and you have all these clouds that cover over it.
You can see the mist forming.
So because our understanding of clouds hadn't gotten super far, that on Earth, clouds are made of water, primarily water. So all of the ideas around Venus kind of revolved around it being a wet planet.
Jungle planet?
Yes.
Waterworld.
That's what I'm talking about.
Oh, yeah.
By 1918, you had Nobel laureate chemist savant Arrhenius. I believe, is that his name? Arrhenius.
Dude, that's straight out of Harry Potter. That's fucking
No doubt.
Yeah, 100%.
He came to the conclusion that the cloud cover on Venus was actually water vapor, and he declared in his book, Destinies of the Stars, a very great part of the surface of Venus is no doubt covered with swamps, and compared Venus humidity to the Congo's tropical rainforest. So this is a Nobel laureate chemist, and he thought that
hey, trust the science. There you go.
Just taking what information he had and said, hey, but he went for it. I admire that. He went for it. So it's like, there's a lot of fun books and stories out there that are set on the jungles of Venus. And, they thought that what life did exist down there was perhaps some kind of like primordial version of Earth. So you had, I think a lot of them were like dinosaurs. I mentioned that H.P. Lovecraft, and it was definitely reptile people.
Monsters,
like reptilian people lived in these jungles, these ancient jungles of Venus. So it's always, you find these things. But another one, like Zell mentioned, was that perhaps that another theory came along the pipeline, and that said that perhaps, since there were jungles, there had to be these large land masses. But a contending theory said that these large land masses that would support jungles couldn't exist because they would have generated atmospheric updrafts that would have broken up the planet's cloud cover. So if you had all these things, it would have just you wouldn't have the uniform cloud cover that
over the whole planet.
Venus
we would
presented.
see some breakage of it where the updrafts
definitely
pushed up.
If you had those continents with jungles and stuff, you would have most likely a similar, like we have like the jet stream, which circulates heat from the equator upwards and around, and the clouds are continuously changing. But on Venus, it seems like it's just solid, dense cloud. Yeah,
so they're like, Savante, you idiot. There's no chance of tropical rainforest. This is Waterworld, baby.
Yeah, so, just Kevin Costner going around in his boat, hunting mute sharks, which is pretty rad too.
Melting.
So it wouldn't actually be until the 1960s and 70s when radar imaging was used in a large amount and actually revealed what Venus had underneath her clouds. You had these rough surfaces, and that it was actually solid. Like Zell said, this pretty much proved that Venus had a rocky surface. It wasn't a gas giant, it wasn't a gas planet. It was a solid rock ball covered in sulfuric acid.
Yeah.
Because we were able to take we didn't have any direct samples of the clouds on Venus. We couldn't send anything there, and I don't think we've never had a probe that's been able to go there and take physical samples of the clouds and return. No.
I never seem to return from when you send them to Venus.
Without that, the best we could do is that we take spectrographs, which reveal the chemical composition of the clouds through the light that's reflected, which we use with a lot of stuff, stars and things like this, and you could take the temperature measurements of Venus. So we pretty much that's the best we could do with trying to gather more information on this mysterious neighbor planet of
and
ours.
The crazy thing for me, one of the craziest things is that if you were just like, if someone jumped out at me on the street and was like, hey, what's the hottest planet in our solar system? I'd be like, Mercury? It's close to the sun. It's got to be the hottest. Not even close to the hellscape that is Venus.
Yeah, because the Russians, they landed a few, I don't know what you call them. Like, what do you call them? A probe? What do you call them?
Probe, rover,
so they've landed a few probes on Venus, but I think the one that lasted the longest was 23 seconds. It was basically able to get a few, it's a few pictures and send it back. But it's interesting that the Russians seem to be a lot more intrigued by Venus than we were initially. Hey, I wonder what it was that, drove them to pursue Venus. And
they made contact with the Venusians first.
Or maybe there was something to do with Ozaviking, right? Maybe there was plans with Venus, already, prepared. And that's why they just maybe took over that mission to go. Maybe they knew that it was the closest to Earth before everybody else did. I don't know.
Yeah, it is weird though. And that's how we know though.
They're like, what's happening to the probe? They're like, we don't know. It's melting on entry. They're like, what do you mean? It's made of metal. They're like, it's gone.
Yeah. Turns out the surface is 450 degrees and the electronics can't keep up, and we don't have enough
those
shielding.
Clouds, those beautiful clouds we saw are sulfuric acid. What do you want
Turns
from
out
us?
It's a poisonous hellscape that nothing we've sent there yet has been able to survive. I imagine what kind of probe could survive? You'd have to line it because lead would melt. It'd be some type of high heat shielding, some super shielded electronics. Because
I have no idea how you get something down there to even survive long enough.
Like even if we had like a rover that could survive the heat, which we could do with different metals, I'm sure, just the heat inside of it would just fry the components. Like you'd have to be able to keep
all the measurement, like all the diagnostic equipment would just be like wouldn't be able to do anything really. So Venus is kind of strange because it's actually, the funny thing is like the way that it is now, there are a number of scientists who believe that it wasn't always like this. There's been a theory that's been kind of gaining steam for a while that perhaps Venus may have actually...
Absolutely.
Right? It scares me.
That Venus may have been more Earth-like in the past. It may have actually been the climate might have been a little bit more resembling like ancient Earth, which would be maybe tolerable is a word, but even if you went back like 65 million years, you'd probably still find it hard to breathe, compared to like what our atmosphere composition is like today. But Venus might have been something that you could actually you might have been able to at least stand on the surface and not get totally melted by
Venus is the closest
rain.
Venus is the closest planet to Earth. It's like they call it like the sister planet. It's almost the same size. There's a little chart here. The gravity is almost the same. The atmospheric pressure, though, because of the density of the atmosphere, is like you're 6,000 feet beneath the sea.
Oh, yeah, wow. So you get instantly crushed. You're training like Vegeta at that point.
Fuck yeah, man. Maybe that's what what
the Russians want to do. They wanted to win some hockey games, man. That's what they want to do. They're going to send their Olympians.
That's the new doping.
Yeah. They're like, well, everything's melting. They're like, all right.
Hey, well, it worked for Goku. Let's try it.
And the other guy's like, hey, I got these needles. All right, well, that's cheaper.
Yeah, so it's very similar to the size of Earth. The density is very similar. So, I mean, because they always say like it's a runaway greenhouse effect. Like some people say it was back, 1 billion years ago or more, a runaway like volcanic episode on the planet evaporated all the oceans, contributed to the massive CO2, and it just couldn't recover. Like the climate just couldn't recover.
And then we hopped on spaceships and ran away to Earth.
To sister planet Earth.
Yeah. No, first, that was my theory for later, but first Mars, went to Mars, fucked that atmosphere up too, the whole planet, stripped the Mars. Then we jumped away to Earth, and now look where we are.
But when you go to Earth first, Earth's closer, isn't it?
Maybe Earth wasn't as habitable.
Maybe it was a frozen solid wasteland back then. I don't know.
That's fair. Okay.
But you stole it right from me. That's exactly right. I thought say it was Earth-like, and there wasn't a species that evolved to be fairly intelligent. And it was their carelessness that caused the runaway greenhouse effect. They jumped to Mars, did the same thing to jump to Earth. We just keep repeat
the cycle, man. Let's go.
What's to kind of get a little weird before we continue is I was watching some videos about it, and it was kind of mind-boggling how much the CO2 can heat up a planet. And then they were talking about terraforming Venus. Like, could we do it? And they're like, we would need to be a little bit more technologically advanced, and we would have to take on a project that was going to take lifetimes and probably like thousands of years to actually see through. But one of the things that they did is they were like, well, the first thing we're going to want to do is cool down the planet. And it doesn't have they were like, basically we would use solar shades and then also start construction of a moon. Because you couldn't just, because it rotates so slowly, everything gets cooked. So you'd have to have like mirror systems to basically control where sunlight could not be to make sure the planet was cooling. And then once all this stuff started freezing and all the carbon, the temperature started to drop, like pressure and shit would go down, and it would actually make it like a frozen hellscape. And then you would start mining that, like all the ice of the phosphine and all that shit, and send it into space and start constructing a moon. And then when I was watching that, I was like, man, and that moon would do exactly like you could place it perfectly, just like our moon. And I was a little cooked, and I was like, whoa. I was like, hey, that's exactly what they must have done that to us.
Well, the makers of this video must not have seen the sci-fi classic, The Core, with everybody's favorite Aaron Eckhart, and seen that all you have to do is drill to the center of Venus and set off a couple nukes, and you could just start it spinning again.
Yes.
Like, duh. Come on.
Well, hey, maybe Venus is a place where Aaron Eckhart wasn't there to operate the ship, and so it failed miserably.
Didn't have the man for the job.
Damn it. Where were you, Aaron Eckhart? So like I was saying, like you can see the definite thing where it's like the definite cycle where it's like Venus like loses interest, gains interest, loses interest, gains interest, and we had this kind of thing. So with every little more stuff that we learn about it, it becomes more interesting. So you have recent climate modeling that scientists have access to this software and these tools to show that perhaps, Venus really was somewhere that could have been habitable at some point, and may have had the proper setting for producing life at some point, or at least like maybe not life as we, you'd think like intelligent life, but something of a semblance of that. Now,
maybe intelligent. Come on, let's give it to him. Let's give it to him. It's a billion years ago. We don't know.
It's true. They figure with the climate modeling, it was probably less than 1 billion years ago that the climate changed so drastically to produce that runaway greenhouse effect that we talked about. So it's kind of been theorized that either like it could have been some sort of artificially produced phenomenon. I'm not sure if any I'm not sure any scientists who've written any papers on this would kind of go with that one as their first pick, but it's out there.
And this show, that's pick one.
But a lot of other scientists would probably go with it. Perhaps there was some kind of systematic or increase, like a drastic increase in volcanic, like volcanism, and so a bunch of volcanoes kind of set off, and then everything kind of like that kind of added to this whole started the whole cycle and kind of.
Want to hear my theory on it?
Sure.
Yep.
1 billion years ago, Venus was coming out of a long and sustained ice age. It was continuously warming when a comet impact hit the polar ice caps of Venus. But instead of causing a cascading warming, like melting effect, it caused worldwide volcanic eruption. So what I'm saying here is this is Venus's younger Dryas.
It's the younger Venus. That's the younger Venus.
Younger Venus.
1 billion years ago, it was a different asteroid, plume. Maybe
it was the same one. It skipped off.
Came back 1 billion years later to finish us off. But I'm thinking that's what's happened here.
I mean, it makes sense.
If I call my buddy Graham Hancock, I'm sure he'll agree with me.
Oh, I'm sure he will.
Get him on the line.
I'm going to co-write a book.
Get the red phone. Get him on the red phone. Like Andrew mentioned before, you had the Soviet Venera and Vega missions in the 1970s and 80s, which did manage to land on the surface of Venus. And they do have pictures of those. So we have actual photos of that they managed to send out before these probes melted. And you can look at it, and it doesn't look like a super
Do you
nice
remember
place.
the Mars probe when the battery was dying and it said those sad words? Remember?
It was getting dark.
Yeah, and it was just heart-wrenching, like it's really sad. We have an audio clip of the probe on Venus's last moment.
I'll take my headphones off.
Ready?
Yep.
I like how Andrew knew right away. He's like,
to cut his headphones. It just boiled from the inside. And
he's about to boil my fucking brain from the inside.
But scientists have used these climate models and things that they've had of Venus to kind of help us figure out, or at least have some sort of comparison with what's happening on Earth. Of course, they're drastically different, and Earth is not a complete hellhole at this point. Seems to be heading that way, but slowly, maybe. And you have all these kinds of. We have a lot of more information than we did before. like we said, so we had NASA's Magellan spacecraft, which visited Venus in the early 1990s, which used radar to actually see through the dense clouds that cover the surface. And it gave us a lot more detailed images of about 98% of Venus's surface. And so there was a team of geophysicists recently, which I found something kind of interesting, is that they put together a little study to search for geological evidence of the climate change event that happened on Venus. And this led them to actually focus on these really old types of rocks on Venus, like the oldest type of rocks, and they called them tesserae, which apparently have a very complex appearance that suggests a long and complicated geological history on the surface of Venus.
Yeah, of getting just melted and crushed by unbelievable pressure.
Right. But what they found was super interesting is that their research demonstrated that some of the younger lava flows on the surface and surrounding the volcanic plains had actually filled in the valleys in the margins of this tesserae. And when they looked at these, they said that, and they compared to kind of similar structures on Earth, they found that these places perhaps had flowing water at some point. Like these lava flows had followed actual like riverbeds, like ancient riverbeds. So perhaps cool. that showed them that there has perhaps been water, liquid water.
There's it's hard to tell if it's water, right? It's liquid something. But I guess these lava flows and these lavas, were filling in these gaps in these tesserae and just being like, when you look at Earth, you're like, this is where flowing water goes. These look very similar to that. So that was one thing that they kind of found. That was a kind of a cool study from a couple of years ago. But the most recent events is something a little bit different. So it's like, not only is it just like Mars or like on the moon where it's like, yeah, there's water up there, but maybe there's never been life. We have a little bit, we talked about it before and we can kind of get into it now, after a break. Aliens.
Right after the break.
Right after the break, aliens in the clouds of Mars or clouds of Venus. Both. Yeah. Clouds of all planets. That's where the aliens lurk.
The clouds aren't real. Wake up, people.
Wake up, sheeple. All right, we'll be right back.
That's not just the sound of that first sip of Morning Joe. It's the sound of someone shopping for a car on Carvana from the comfort of home.
That's a good blend.
It's time to take it easy, like answering some easy questions to get pre-qualified for a car in minutes.
Talk about starting the morning right.
Just like customizing your terms so your car fits your budget. Visit Carvana.com or download the app to experience car shopping the way it should be. Convenient, comfortable. That's not just the sound of that first sip of Morning Joe. It's the sound of someone shopping for a car on Carvana from the comfort of home.
That's a good blend.
It's time to take it easy, like answering some easy questions to get pre-qualified for a car in minutes.
Talk about starting the morning right.
Just like customizing your terms so your car fits your budget. Visit Carvana.com or download the app to experience car shopping the way it should be. Convenient, comfortable.
So now we're going to talk about clouds that aren't
aliens.
Real.
Yeah, in the clouds.
Aliens living in the clouds.
So you mean to tell me this whole time Care Bears are aliens?
I'll tell you something right now. They don't care.
They did live in the clouds. That
did.
God, that makes so much sense now. They lived
you ever
on
seen
Venus.
A cloud that looks like a dog? That's what they want you to see.
So Venus, like we said before, is a pretty strange place. It's totally uninhabitable to us, to humans. But the thing is that once you get above the surface and you get above the clouds, scientists estimate that you would actually be pretty habitable or to humans ourselves, where it's like if you get about at least 60 kilometers.
I watched a whole season of the fucking Jetsons, man. It's nothing new here.
They lived on Earth.
Yeah, and above the clouds, because after we fucked up Earth.
That's true. Oh man. When you look back at the Jetsons, you think about that, it's like, oh man, it's just like down on Earth. It's like where all the poor people live, and it's just probably some like Morlock looking fuckers.
They say it's where the Flintstones live. It's the same universe. All the cavemen live.
That's true. Yeah, I've heard that one too. I've heard that theory.
They had a crossover.
Yeah.
No, because they had the Jetsons. They had a Jetsons Flintstones thing, and they went back in time.
Yeah.
There's a Jetsons Flintstone crossover.
Cool.
So conditions in the atmosphere about 60 kilometers above the ground are actually, you have temperatures here and pressure that are much closer to Earth. And so astronomers and space scientists have long gathered evidence that something strange is occurring in this region of the Venusian atmosphere. So
It's like a tropical paradise in the sky.
well, maybe. Perhaps. Well, I mean, that's what they said. It's like, it would probably be like the atmosphere and the conditions would be a lot similar to some of the tropical areas here on Earth. Like you could just essentially, you make boats made of giant blimps just that would float on the, the clouds are fairly dense and you could just kind of float on there. You have these
not
giant
only are the
floating
clouds
islands.
dense, like super dense, they are like the wind speeds are constant on Venus. Like the higher up you go in the atmosphere, like the faster the winds move. So like a balloon would work, or theorizing, if you had, say the whatever species was there got advanced enough, they recognized the climate change, that it's starting to spin, like the wind is starting to pick up, the atmosphere is thickening, they can't breathe anymore. You would make like a fortress with wings and anchor it to the ground, and you could just float above the surface.
Well, until your tether melted.
No, well,
Yeah, but you could build a tether out of stuff that would be.
it's only 450 degrees is hot, but it's not like going to melt steel, or it's not going to melt like some alloy,
Venus doesn't melt steel beams, okay?
Yeah. Come on. Wake up, sheeple.
There's something about like just living in cloud cities of Venus where I feel like everyone there would wear turtlenecks unironically.
Yeah, you have a bunch of cool ass fucking Billy D. Williams hanging out there, man.
Yeah, all fashionistas.
Capes are coming back. Capes are in fashion on Venus.
Well, that's what they were. Cloud City,
every year.
everybody's sexy.
Yeah. It's a rule where they just toss you.
They just toss you. Nope.
Yeah, there's no evidence of murder on Venus.
So something strange was kind of found out about Venus, or it was observed of Venus about 100 years ago. Scientists actually noticed that there is these features in the atmosphere that appear to absorb UV light, ultraviolet light, and these features actually moved in synchrony with the rotation of Venus's atmosphere. So like Zell said, like the atmosphere is moving, the clouds are moving, planet itself not so much, but you have this thing, the conditions have the atmosphere moving. And so they could kind of track these weird features that were kind of moving around. They weren't really sure what it is. But, one of the quotes from Sarah Seeger at MIT said that this unknown absorber is remarkably efficient, capturing more than 50% of the solar energy reaching Venus, with consequent effects on atmospheric structure and dynamics. And she's one of the principal investigators of this phenomenon. Now, Earth, surprisingly enough, has a similar anomalous absorbance, what that's commonly referred to as the red edge, which is a fucking sweet name.
Dope name. The red edge.
That comes about because light is reflected from the Earth's surface, tends to be absorbed strongly in the red part of the spectrum. And this phenomenon is actually the result of photosynthesis on the surface. So, quote saying that the spectral characteristics of the Venus clouds, including the strong UV absorption, are consistent with the spectrum of certain types of terrestrial bacteria.
Photosynthesizing up there.
Photosynthesizing.
I knew I should have paid attention in grade 8 science. That's when I remember that word, but something to do with plants, right?
Yeah, that's what plants
It's true, yes. It's the process in which plants utilize sunlight to produce.
When you get a degree and take a picture of plants, right?
Yes.
Is that what that is?
It is, yeah. That's exactly it.
All right, perfect.
Well, I think pretty much what we just discovered here is if we can find out what this unknown absorber is, we've solved the energy crisis for planet Earth. 50% solar power? That's a pretty efficient solar power right there.
Big chunk. Now, the
Float
next
them up
kind
in the
of
atmosphere.
So another weird thing about
That's
Venus,
the power all the Venusian sweatshops for all their high fashion.
yeah, that's all the Cape factories. Another discovery about Venus, and this is the more recent one, everybody was really excited to hear when they made the big announcement, because I remember posting it on our Discord when seeing a thing that they were popping up, like it's something really big was happening, and I was like, this is pretty neat. Like, I mean, I know in my head that it's like Venus has always been kind of the clouds above Venus. Again, I've always heard about the, floating above the clouds. Everything's pretty habitable up there. Like stuff could survive. And I'm like, why couldn't you have some type of life form that's kind of just floating? They got some type of like buoyancy sacs, like fish here have swim bladders. Maybe they just have something different, gives them like negative buoyancy. And
dude, even if some sort of bird that would just, you wouldn't have to, you would use zero efficiency because you just open the wings like a glider.
Big old marahutes just fucking floating around.
Giant golden eagles.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
A couple little meese.
Well, I imagine I imagine they'd be super slender, right? Because you wouldn't have to be big and powerful to like flap because of the wind speed. You would just glide the entire time.
Yeah, they'd be like the mythological rock that's like, it's a giant bird with no feet, just wings, just floats around.
And then they just, as they age, they just fucking crash and melt into the clouds.
Icarus style.
Yeah.
The Venus Phoenix. Yeah, sounds pretty fucking
never
rad.
to rise again.
So what they discovered actually is, like I said, when they went back and went through some of the data of the atmospheric conditions on Venus, they found that there's a large amount of phosphine gas. And now phosphine is a toxic flammable gas with the characteristic of its smell is very distinct. They say it smells like garlic or rotting fish.
Ooh.
And phosphine is...
Which is two very different smells, okay? Garlic is fucking great.
You had me. I was like, garlic? Garlic? Rotten fish?
Not so much.
Phosphine is also
smells like flowers
reactive.
or ass.
It's highly reactive, and it survives, like I mentioned before, a very short time. Its presence in Earth's atmosphere at the level of parts per trillion suggests it must be constantly produced. In this case, on Earth, it's by anaerobic bacteria that produce stuff without oxygen. But it's constantly going on on Earth. So therefore, we have phosphine gas in our atmosphere. It's in detectable amounts.
So I'm wondering if maybe when it's in Gatorade, it smells like garlic, and when it's not, it smells like stinky ass fish.
I hear you.
Does that make sense?
Depending which, yeah, okay, I got you.
Okay.
Fun fact also about phosphine. Walter White does it when he gets abducted in Breaking Bad, like episode 2, to escape the trailer. He throws he makes phosphine gas and then runs out and they die in the trailer.
Oh,
it's super poisonous. Immediately poisonous to the respiratory system.
Yeah, in large amounts, large enough amounts.
He like threw it into the water and it reacted and made the puff of smoke. He jumped out. They inhaled it. They're toast. There you go.
Chemistry's cool, kids.
So what you're saying is Walter White's from Venus.
Yes.
Inner story.
I haven't seen the end of Breaking
Bad,
but I assume that's the ending.
He gets picked up. He gets picked up. Off he goes.
Yeah, I guess that's where you learn how to make the perfect meth is on Venus. That makes sense. So now in 2017, when they were gathering all this data and they made their announcement in 2020, big announcement that came out here, you had Jane Greaves at the head from the University of Cardiff. And she went through all of her colleagues, like before they made this announcement. Like I said, they started finding stuff in 2017. And there's a couple of good articles about her kind of process that she went through, kind of going through this. And it's like when she looked at this data, she's like, there's no way. There's no way. This is something that could literally change everything. And so she ran this through a whole bunch of other scientists, like a team. She kind of gathered a bunch of people together who were, specialties in their fields, kind of putting together, like, could this be produced by something else besides, the stuff that we see here on Earth? Could it be a geophysical reaction? Could it be something that's the interaction with the organic chemicals in the clouds? Something else like this. Ran through all this data, but like when they got through all of this, at the end, there's still like the best explanation that they could
say it, Dan. Say it.
They could put through is that
say it.
There's a good chance that that there is life, something producing this phosphine gas on Venus. So that's the thing.
There's a great movie montage moment of all of the like scientists getting the paper, like, oh, what is this? Yeah, okay, yeah, let's. Well, this can't be right. Like crunch numbers, shaking their papers around, doing circles.
It had to be. Yeah, it had to be amazing. I assume it was really amazing and kind of flooring for her to kind of look at this. I imagine it's kind of the same reaction they had when they had the wow signal from SETI, and like they found that thing, they like circled it and like, that's weird.
Or when I read a full sentence. Same.
It's quite remarkable.
Yeah.
And so they so they went through all these things. So again, one of there's two kind of theories right now that they're still trying to run against each other. It's like, it could be life, very possible. Something that we've seen on Earth, like it's very similar. And then the other contending theory is that perhaps it could possibly be some type of geologic reaction or something that's going on Venus that we've never seen before. So it's either something we've never seen before, or it's something that we've seen before, but here on Earth.
Well, we just went through the two. You said the one could be a terrestrial bacteria, so life in a way, right? Phosphine gas, possible life. All these skeptics trying to throw it away and just say it's some natural. We just don't know. It's some natural phenomenon. Come on, just say it, everyone.
Yeah.
Well, it could be something we've never seen before. Either prospect to me. Yes, life is super cool, and I would love to see some type of weird.
What about like
jellyfish?
Isn't it like Occam's razor though? Wouldn't that just make you kind of go towards there being life?
Well, yeah, it could be. But it's like, science is like, there's always the 0.1% chance. And it's like, nothing's ever 100%, but
So what you're saying is this is 99.9% aliens.
Absolutely.
Well, no.
Unequivocal.
That's what I heard.
Slam the gavel. It's over. Case closed. There's fucking aliens on Venus.
Whether that be single-celled aliens or super smart,
blue, hot, sexy lady aliens. That's the way I picture it.
High fashion Venusians.
Yeah.
On their cloud towers,
blue sexy
stuff
for sure.
Hey,
it's like
there we got it.
From what we do know, the Venusian atmosphere contains oxygen, methane, in amounts that can't produced by blue sexy. They produce methane.
They produce methane.
Reek.
Just stink.
It's not super fun. The amounts in which the atmosphere contains these elements, oxygen and methane, can't be easily explained, is what they're saying. So, and astronomers have recently found evidence of these unexpected amounts of phosphine, and also the presence of ammonia in the atmosphere is also important because that would actually neutralize the sulfuric acid that we talked about as contained within the clouds. So, if this ammonia is present in such amounts that it's able to neutralize this would make it even more likely that there would be a survivable atmosphere there, like more habitable to life that is
in the clouds.
Well, similar to Earth. And to be honest, to me, I'm like, I when I look at this, and again, this might surprise everyone, but I'm not a scientist.
What?
But like, how many times where we're like, there's this volcano on Earth and it's so hot by these water jets. There's not a chance there could be any. It's so inhospitable to life. We can't do it. And they're like, oh shit, there's little bacteria eating it, living it fine. And you're like, oh, okay.
Life finds a way, baby.
You're like,
they're
shit.
living at 500 degrees.
Yeah. And so when you say like, as soon as you say they're like, hey, Venus has like a Goldilocks zone of like pretty decent weather, like not even pretty harsh. I'm going, well, and we're seeing these like the signs that could be like, I'm like, I'll make the leap. That's pretty easy for me to make the leap and say, well, then I would say there's some sort of microbial life in the fucking skies of Venus. Like that's easy peasy.
At the very least.
Very
microbial.
least.
And it could be microbial life. It could be something else. I think I kind of saw
blue sexy lady aliens.
I'm telling you. What were those fucking aliens that Corey Good? The blue,
the mantis
Nordics?
No, he called them I think he called them the avians, actually. The blue avians. That's what they were. Corey Good, the guy was the secret space program dude. The first guy, at least. He said Hey, blue sexy aliens.
telling you,
We're
boys.
bird people?
I think actually in one of his interviews, he did call them attractive.
He must have.
So
Weird.
I think he's seen them.
Objectively attractive aliens. I mean, I guess, I don't know. If you got to think for birds.
Oh, they'd be so snotty to us. So snobby.
The birds,
The Venusians.
the blue avians.
Yeah.
Why would they be snotty?
I just think so. They'd be like looking down at us. Look at that Homo sapien.
With his
Walking
skin,
around,
Yeah.
walking around on the ground.
Yeah.
Like an
breathing oxygen.
ape. Petty.
Disgusting.
Petty.
So now that we have some pretty good evidence for Venus, this was because when they made this announcement, there wasn't anything really slated for any type of exploration mission to kind of Venus. There hadn't been really anything kind of laid out. I think anything doing with Venus had kind of been put on the back burner since the 70s and 80s. Like pretty much since the Russians landed their landers on here, they're like, this place is a fucking hellhole. We're not coming back here. Never mind.
We just spent $1 billion to make a rover that lasts 20 seconds.
Right. And now this is revamped the interest in Venus once again to being like, we should get something out there. So there is a organization called the Venus Life Finder mission, and they are a private.
They're looking for
privately
Earth's
funded
sexiest
studs. They're a privately funded series of focused missions to Venus that will take advantage of an opportunity for high risk, high reward science, which stands to possibly answer one of the
Sound
greatest
pretty
science
sexy to me.
mysteries.
Yeah.
That's fucking sexy.
I mean, I'm reading between the lines here, Dan, but I think I know what they're looking for.
Can you watch this on Netflix? Like, I think I've fucking seen this shit. Love Island, Love Planet here. Same shit.
Yeah. Is Nick and Vanessa Lacey or whatever the names is hosting?
Love Above the Clouds is what we'll call it.
That's what it's gonna
Hosted by Nick Lachey,
Yeah.
formerly of what was it? Was it
Earth.
98 degrees?
98 degrees.
Yeah.
Yeah,
He's the
he
one
was-
who married Jessica Simpson, right?
Now he's 450 degrees.
Hey.
We pair up two different species. Can they find love? Is
Where do
love
I put it? Does it go
is
here?
They
There's
gotta
too
do
many
it.
holes.
They can, all their reality shows in one cross species. You got something there. Maybe I'll text John, the producer. Say we got our new show, buddy.
Yeah.
Yeah, you said you
Forget
want to go
alien
first?
theorists.
Yeah,
Forget
You just
alien
got to get
theorists
funding to
theorizing,
send
man.
us to Venus. It's not a big deal. Easy peasy. Put us on the next one. So there are three planned missions that they have that are kind of penned out so far from this Venus Life Finder mission. And so they've got one that's due for launch in 2023 next year. And this one will be a ballistic drop through the atmosphere, and it will use a laser to illuminate, excite, and study organic molecules during the descent. But it will seat what they say, quote, but it will be a seat of the pants flight. The drop provides only a few minutes of which to study the atmosphere. So it's like just kind of like they just shoot it down in there.
Yeah, and then just crash it.
Just a quickie is what you're saying.
Yeah, just a quick.
Yeah, in and out,
Just a quickie.
in and out, just a tip.
Just a tip.
In and out.
Just an in, and then it melts.
Then it melts. You got
Die
Yeah,
happy.
Yeah.
go quick.
Then they have another one, which is like they're going to they plan to send a balloon, like an actual balloon. So you drop this second one through, it goes through the atmosphere, and then it would kind of it would deploy some kind of flotation, something to keep the diagnostic equipment platform that they're going to use kind of floating for about a week through the atmosphere, and then perhaps being able to gather up some samples to actual study. So kind of like what the Mars rovers are doing right now, going around and kind of just picking up little samples and then kind of doing what it can there, by itself on the planet. And then the third one would actually be is going to be the most difficult one, which would be that an actual sample return. So that would involve another balloon similar to the second one, but this time it would carry a rocket with the equipment that would be able to gather samples and then ascend back out of the atmosphere and then return to Earth so we could take a closer look
We're
as
fucking
to what
crazy.
is actually there on Venus.
We're fucking crazy. Let's bring back a sample of the fucking hell planet to Earth.
That's how we get
That's what we should
symbiotes,
do.
people.
Yeah, that's how
we
Doom
get
started,
symbiotes.
people. Come on, man.
Yeah, you drop it, you bring it back here, it escapes. It's actually like we're just saying, like, oh, it's some new, something unobserved, unknown. It's some new molecule that's actually like predatory, and it just starts replicating itself and taking all over to all the atmosphere.
The
and that was
aliens
the
are
runaway.
the clouds. They are the clouds.
They are the clouds. That's what I'm talking about, Dan.
Well, it's one of those things where you like think about how difficult life must be on a place like Venus. So like you'd have to have like where there's like habitable zones, these things must thrive, right? And have a short time to really grow and expand and do their thing. Then you bring it to Earth and they're just like, take over. It's like, we're gonna spread as fast as I can. What's that? What was that movie with the aliens back in the day? And it had David Duchovny.
Evolution.
Evolution.
Yeah.
That was the movie. And it all spreads. That's exactly what's going to happen.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Don't do it.
Careful.
Don't fucking do it.
Careful with that atmosphere, man. It's a contagious atmosphere.
I think I remember I watched the whole announcement like back when they put it on YouTube or whatever, like when it went the live announcement, which was pretty cool. And of course, everyone's being like, oh, life on Venus, you're trying to ask a scientist, like, so is there life? And like, well, we don't know. And it's like, and then you have to ask a scientist, always ask them if you want to know the weird stuff, be like, can you speculate for us? always ask them that question. And then they'll usually get into the weird. That's when the fun starts, because you'll be like, can you speculate about what they would? And I think I remember one of them, it might have been the lead lady was talking about that, perhaps, just on speculation and kind of being like, perhaps it's some type of like a migratory organism or a group of organisms, or even like maybe like a giant one. I don't know. But that just kind of like they move with the clouds. Like they just follow the clouds, because what they said is they saw the evidence of these patches, these large areas where like the UV light is being absorbed, but it moves with the planet. So it's like it's moving there. So there's something there that they're just kind of finding really weird.
Ghosts. They'll go back.
Ghosts of Venus.
Yeah.
Ghost Planet.
Sequel to the
Ghosts of
critically
Mars.
Acclaimed Ghosts of Mars. That Natasha Hendricks. Did that have Natasha Hendricks?
It had Ice Cube in it.
Yeah.
Ice-T.
Are you sure?
It was Ice T?
Sure.
I thought it was Ice
Ice-T?
Cube too.
I thought it was Ice Cube.
Pretty sure it's Ice-T.
Ghosts.
Well, Ice-T was in Rick and Morty.
Yes.
No, it was Ice Cube.
That's what I said.
Was it Ice Cube?
Yeah.
Yeah, I said Ice Cube.
I believed you.
I didn't know anything.
I thought it
about
was
so
Ice Cube too.
Was it Natasha Hendricks or was it?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Jason
I got that part.
Statham was in it too.
Yeah, he was. That was his like early days.
Yeah.
Jay Stay.
He was Sergeant Jericho.
That's such a
Interesting.
fucking weird movie. It's such a crazy movie.
I saw it because it had Ice Cube in it. That's why I remember.
How sort of Ice-T? I got Natasha Hendricks right. 1 for 2. I'm all right.
1 for 2. Not bad. 50%. That's right in the remote viewing wheelhouse
Yeah.
there.
It's good.
20, between 20 and 80. I just want to go back to, because Danny, you said something about, just get a scientist to speculate.
Mm-hmm.
So I would imagine, not being one myself and not having done the research, but like,
Yeah, but you're also 500,000 years old. So you've seen a lot of shit.
I've seen a lot of stuff. I've heard a lot of
basically
stuff. I've
a
never
scientist.
put in the work myself. But I would imagine if you were a career scientist, your job is to theorize and speculate, but you really only present what you can back up.
Mm-hmm.
That would be an amazing podcast. You get like if you had the poll, if you had the clout to get the world's best scientist and be like, listen, here's the topic. We're going to straight theorizing. That would be fun.
I mean, you can get people to, scientists, they tend to like to speculate. And it's like, if you get them within their thing, it's, at least in like the higher, whatever.
Well, they're super nerds, right? They're obsessed with like this certain field, right? They're obsessed. Well, they're obsessed with they're a certain field, but they only really present publicly what they can back up. But I would imagine, because they're probably very imaginative people, just all day just thinking about all the wild possibilities it could be, and trying to put together like, nah, I can't go that way, and eventually you have to settle with something with sound science. But
yeah, I'd listen to that, but
it'd be so fun.
I also think you'd kind of find it interesting since, like I said, this discovery did not happen with just one person. Like it is a group of scientists. Like then they all kind of co-published the paper together, their findings and things like this. So it's like you kind of have to have this work through of like different, because they're all special. They're all specialists in their own field. Because you could be like, I mean, they can consider the possibilities. Like when they found the first kind of evidence of this presence of phosphine gas, they were still kind of being like, could there be some other reason for this? And then you send it to like a bunch of other people. But having scientists speculate about stuff is always pretty fun. Like I always try to, I wish you could find more papers on like xenobiology and stuff like this, but it's not like a real thing. I think Avi Loeb, remember we were talking to Avi Loeb about it? And he's back in the news.
Xenobiology, just quickly, because I know what it is. I just need a quick refresher.
So like being xenobiology, like if you look it up, actually, a lot of people are like xenobiology it'll be like terrestrial organisms here on Earth, like invading other environments than are theirs or whatever. But like xenobiology would be like the search for life, like what life would be like on other planets. I don't know if there's a specific field for it, like off the top of my head, that it's being like, what could possibly survive, for like, what would life look like underneath Europa, like in Europa or something like that, in frozen oceans of Europa or in Satalis or something.
Right.
Like what would that life look like? Would it be some kind of giant ice squid? Would it be tiny ice squids? Would it be medium-sized ice squids? I don't know.
So those are the scientists I want to talk to then, the xenobiologists.
Right. So you'd want to talk to somebody like that, or even just, I imagine you even want to talk to like a biologist that studies deep sea life, for those types of things. Like I talked to a scientist that does like that is the exploration.
That is one of the craziest things about like Earth science is we don't really know a lot about the deeps of the ocean. Like we haven't really explored that much.
Yeah, because they're super fucking creepy. Like,
it's like almost harder to go to those depths than it is go to space now, right? Because now we got the reusable rockets and it's much cheaper. And to go that deep, well, you pretty much have to send drones, or it's like really hard to send humans that deep. There's only been like
stay down there for a long time, really.
Well, yeah, there's only been a handful of people who actually made it down like Mariana's Trench, and you only get to explore like a small portion of it.
James Cameron.
He would too, motherfucker.
It's just, we have so many here on life here on Earth. The variety of life on Earth is always amazing to think about if you actually think about it. Like if you think about there's stuff that lives on the top of mountains and there's things that live down in the bottom of the oceans, and they are all very extremely different. And if you go back even, into the fossil record, you'll find we're constantly finding new types of organisms. I'm not talking about just dinosaurs, but actually like invertebrates and stuff that look fucking weird. And like scientists are like, I have no idea how this thing functioned. I don't know. There's nothing like this that I've ever seen before here. There's some type of analogs that we have in today's insects or crustaceans, but who knows? Like it survived in the oceans with no eyeballs, but it was walking around with little crab hands. Like, I don't know. Like, fuck.
Little Zoidberg.
Yeah. There's the whole thing where it's like stuff has evolved into crabs like 8 times over the history of Earth. I keep hearing that, but I have to follow up on that at some point. But that's something that people keep saying.
Yeah. Like stuff evolves back to being crab-like.
Yeah. There's something that happens.
You either die or you live long enough to turn back into a crab.
Why?
It's the ideal life form.
True.
And like with Venus, I love that thought process of like that runaway greenhouse gas effect. Maybe it was started by some sort of advanced civilization, right? Because that thing, you get to a tipping point where it just becomes uncontrollable, right? And then it takes off, and then it creates that hellscape. Or
you had something, like you had something set it off. Like it was already pretty bad, and then it was like, oh shit, they drilled too far, and the Balrogs.
I think that there's potentially like it could have been an impact of some sort, because that's because that's what's caused it to fucking slow down or go off kilter and or rotate as slowly as it does, right?
Yeah, I mean, because if the planet had been relatively stable for, let's say, 3 billion years, and then 1 billion years ago, something tipped it where the volcanism took off at an unprecedented pace, or, whatever the event, like some massive solar flare evaporated the ocean, the oceans scorched the earth, wiped the atmosphere, and it can never recover. Because, we didn't really touch on it, but Venus does have like a magnetosphere. It has like similar to Earth, not as strong, and it doesn't like tail off as long, but it does have one, which is what gives Earth its ability for life, pretty much, like refracting and bending all that harmful shit around the planet. So it did have that, and if it was like a water-bearing planet, and it's the same size, relatively the same size and density as Earth, that's fucking wild.
It is crazy to think.
It's
because
a billion years ahead of Earth.
And then like just by naturally, like all evidence of whatever was on that planet is destroyed by basically acid rain and just crushed under unbelievable amounts of pressure.
Or it's just like it's not accessible. Like we just couldn't find it if we wanted to. Like we can't get down there to really search for signs of, like we can look for the markers of life, but we can't actually search for any life that may have been there. We can't get down to the soil and drill and take off. We can't go like have a little dig and like, oh, there's a fucking megalith here. Let's dig in here and check it out.
I think this whole the whole phosphine gas thing too. I think I also read that it's like NASA hadn't planned anything, but this actual discovery actually prompted them to shift their schedule, to change their schedule, and be like, okay, we're going to put something over there. So I think they're going to launch another orbiter in the next couple of years to go like that'll go take a closer look at Venus.
No, go ahead.
I was going to say the NASA director said something along the lines of like, it's time to make Venus a priority again.
Right.
Okay. Well, I don't think we're ever going to get there because I think it's their fucking planet's defense system. They know they have radar. They know we're coming. So they flip on the hell switch and they go to the fucking, they go into the center of Venus and hide until we fuck off.
They cook their own planet for a bit.
Maybe stuff does live underground Venus. If we're thinking above the clouds, perhaps there's
a good point.
Stuff beneath the surface. Like maybe, because if you don't have anything immediately visible up there, what's to say that the subterranean Venus is not?
Well, dude, Venus is probably very similar if it's the same size and density as Earth and it has a magnetosphere. It probably has a turning core, like a molten core, like that's revolving, that creates that, like the poles and stuff. On Earth, like after you go like 6 feet down, the temperature is relatively stable. Just 6 feet, right? So if it's 50 degrees in the desert and you could dig a hole into the bedrock 6 feet and like seal it off on top, underneath it's relatively constant all year. So even if that was, because it's 100 times hotter on Venus, even if you had to drill 100 feet down and it was relatively like constant, who's to say? Yeah, like stuff hadn't developed subterranean. That's pretty cool.
Or if you had like, cave systems and stuff that went deep, right? Like
caverns or something, some system of caverns that is down through there. I don't know if we haven't penetrated Venus yet. So it's like,
because that's the thing. If it was a climate, say it was a climate change. I fucked a planet, Morty. No, say it was like a climate change issue, right? Like we always talk about climate change, like, oh, it's happening. Like it's going to happen. Well, boom, overnight, all of a sudden, boom. But it could have been, a million years. And whatever life that was on there had slowly adapted as to the rising temperatures and the rising CO2, and eventually has slowly adapted underground. Like it's not like there's life. The next day, the CO2 was 96% and it was 450 degrees. It had probably been a slow, drawn out process to the point where that's life couldn't exist, and then there was no turning back.
I think either way, like if we found something, even if it were just like floating bacteria, like out there in the clouds or something like that, it would change the entire everything. It would change our entire perspective. It would widen our perspective about where life could be located, everywhere. Which is just like being like, if life could exist here on this planet that we always thought was totally uninhabitable, but now that stuff does grow here.
It's everywhere.
It could be, it increases the chances exponentially of planets supporting some type of life out there when we get out in the rest of the galaxy. I think I look forward. I'm looking forward to what their findings are going to be once they get these. I think they're partnering. The Venus Life Finder missions are partnering with I think it was Rocket Labs or something, some type of private rocketry thing.
Now,
but I don't know. If this pops off, like, yeah, it's going to be fine.
On the terraforming aspect again, what I found my notes there, it was really interesting because they said we could see we could make drastic changes if we had some sort of like basically a mirror system. It could be a thin foil or whatever, just to block out the sun for Venus. And we could cool the planet in 60 years to a critical point where it's 31 degrees Celsius, where at that point, CO2 starts to turn into liquid form. And we would start a cascade effect where basically there would be like a 50-year torrential downpour of rain, of just like the worst fucking rain you've ever seen at all times, all through the day. And we would drop the temperature so much that by 200 years, it would be a frozen hellscape of just, you could walk on the surface of Venus because we would have the pressures down to about 5 bar, and all the CO2 would be frozen in like huge glaciers of CO2. And then basically that would be the building block of then we would have to go, okay, well, we got to get rid of all the CO2 before we reheat this sucker up. But it was interesting. They were like drastic changes within 200 years we could do. But then if we
build giant space mirrors.
Yeah, if we build giant space mirrors, the rest is thousands.
Yeah, we could build giant space mirrors. You get to cool down Venus, plus giant space mirrors equal giant space lasers. Everybody knows that. So then we'd have...
How big do the space mirrors have to be?
Well, I think it has to blot out the sun.
Oh, just get Mr. Burns on the phone.
Well, I guess to blot out the sun, it'd have to be... Well, I mean, you have to do the little triangulation, but it would have to be a massive disk, but like, 100,000 kilometers from Venus.
Well, and it couldn't be just a disk. It would have to be like spheres broken up into like a cone.
Disco balls, a giant disco ball.
Basically, because I can't remember. I can't remember why there was a certain reason why.
Well, yeah, you wouldn't have to block out all the sun, but you have to decrease the energy enough to start really changing stuff.
Yeah.
Whatever. Giant disco balls on Venus. Sign me up. Sounds rad.
Yeah. Yeah, we had you a blue sexy alien, Dan. Don't lie.
I mean, you got giant disco balls, you got lasers shooting into the clouds. Sounds like a recipe for a fucking rad ass party.
Yeah, it sounds like fucking Intergalactic Studio 54, man.
Yeah. Blimp City. That's the other interesting thing is that you could you could have like a mobile like base on Venus, like a research facility that was, like we said, just propelled, like where you could study and do these things while we were terraforming a planet or trying to.
I think that's one of the things like they've said before, it's like potentially you could just have, I mean, even right now, just thinking in the immediate future, you could perhaps field a type of like research platform that could potentially be staffed by humans that would just kind of float on the clouds above Venus. I think they're still trying to figure out a way to kind of mitigate the effect of sulfuric acid and that kind of degradation the stress that would put on the materials.
I got it.
But
I got it. I just had a thought. So if the atmosphere is so dense, and we talked about the wind speeds are constant, have you ever seen those prototypes of like some type of like carbon nanotube tower to space?
Yeah.
So instead of building a tower from space to the surface,
I was thinking the same thing.
You have a massive ship with the wingspan, the right ratio to be able to maintain it, and then you attach a carbon nanotube out into space, and you have a space station that is just orbiting attached to this fucking... And
that's a great idea because the lasting effects of zero gravity are so harmful on humans. So that way you could, while you were doing this research, for the majority of the time, you could have you could live on the station that's in where the gravity is, right? So you're not getting fucked up by the zero gravity.
So are you talking from nanotube from surface to the atmosphere?
I'm talking from atmosphere to space.
To space. And then so you get a spaceship, right? Yeah. You take your name your spacecraft. You dock it at the space station, the carbon nanotube. You elevator down to the atmosphere platform, and then you live there for whatever time is better for human existence than living in space. Go back up, off you go.
And And I don't think you wouldn't use a lot of energy to get the rotation because Venus doesn't rotate very fast or as fast.
But it's windy as fuck.
Yeah, I guess so. Oh yeah.
But once the tube is straight and it's got the tension on it and it's in space and in the clouds,
it should be fine.
It should be fine. I mean, the tube's got to probably be like fucking 100 kilometers long or something. But hey, if we got Elon Musk's resources, we can do whatever we want. Man, just single-handedly bought Twitter. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. $44 billion.
No big deal.
Wow.
But anyways, yeah, a lot of cool theories about Venus. I mean, the speculation can run wild because they think 1 billion years ago, this greenhouse, whatever caused it, it ran away and there's no getting it back except if you could build a massive array of space mirrors.
And there's perhaps actual, we have good evidence to support something. I mean, something weird is happening on Venus. We just don't know what it is.
There's alien life that's there's not enough evidence to fully admit it.
And it's sexy and blue.
And sexy and blue. They just don't want to admit it yet. They need
Is it
more
blue
evidence.
because of the lack of oxygen?
No, it just increases the sexiness.
Everyone there's just always choking themselves just a little bit.
Little cyanotic.
Auto asphyxiation at all times on Venus.
I guess it would be blue or green. If they said that it's absorbing all the light on like the UV spectrum and like the red area. If it's absorbing those things, like it would appear, technically it would probably appear blue or like green.
Perhaps. Maybe that's it.
I'm going to be so disappointed when they're like, it's some blue-green sky algae.
That'd still be cool.
That's still cool.
That's amazing.
Still cool, yeah.
That's still life. And if life exists there in that form, like in that like simplistic form, chances of existing on the moons of Jupiter or Saturn or in other solar systems just goes through the roof. And it's just a matter
like
of time.
Europa or something like where there's, liquid water. Yeah.
Maybe that is the event that we talked about all these ET cases now, these UFOs, the alien visitation, the abductions. Maybe for these ET species who's been visiting, or they're the scientists on Earth, they're just waiting for us to find it in our own solar system. So when they come out and be like, we found it there, and now actually there is sentient, super intelligent life forms.
Yeah.
It's everywhere. Congratulations. Welcome to the Galactic Federation.
Yeah. Here's your badge and your mop.
Here's your t-shirt.
Yeah, you start at the bottom. You got to work your way up the ladder. Maybe that's it.
Fridays are casual Fridays.
Anyway, it's fun. It's fun to look into different planets in our solar system. It's
Life could be right here. We don't have to.
It could be
maybe we don't have to go
right
that far.
here. It doesn't have to be another dimension or another galaxy or another solar system. It could just be next door.
Still plenty of stuff here to learn here in our own solar system.
Sexy blue aliens await
solar system.
just one planet over. That's it.
I've heard enough.
All right. This week's Theorite of the Week. I got to give it to Jessica Silver Lotus on Discord for sending me. Let's pull it up here. My daughter has not been sleeping very well lately. Not very well at all. But she sent this book, Squatchy's Adventure from A to Z. You start reading to her, instantly to sleep. So I got to thank you for that. We got the Hool, the Basilisk. It goes through all cryptids A to Z, or A to Z if you're south of the border. And the last one is actually Zeltron, surprisingly. I didn't even know I was in the book, but
they know.
They know, I guess. So this week's Theory of the Week, Jessica Silver Lotus, thank you very much for sending that in. You don't have to send us stuff to get Theory of the Week, but when people do,
it helps.
And you heard it at the start of the episode. You're going to hear it again. So just sit right there and listen up. You're not supporting the show. You know where to go by now. AlienTheorist.com.
To hell. Go straight to Venus. You're not supporting the show.
You know what you get. A week early to all the case files, cosmic channels, bonus stuff, blah, blah, blah. Discord access. We appreciate all the support. This week's newest supporters, Megan Moog, Nicholas Willett. Good one coming up here. Jack Mehoff.
Got you good,
fucker. Got him. John Wantland, Alex Richmond, Chris Backus, Kishan Underwood, Creamy-torium.
That's a good one.
Good one.
That is a good one.
Gilbert Leary. Jankers O'Houlihan. Nice.
I hope
And
that's a real
Chris
name.
McGaw. Thank you very much for supporting the show.
And as we always say at the end of these things, keep those eyes on the skies.
See you in after hours.
Elevate every morning with Tommy John's Second Skin underwear. The luxurious support of Second Skin guarantees everything will go smoothly. With over 20 million pairs sold and thousands of 5-star reviews, guys love Tommy John. Plus, your most valuable assets are covered with Tommy John's best pair you'll ever wear or its free guarantee. Get 20% off your first order at TommyJohn.com/Pandora. Save 20% at TommyJohn.com/Pandora. See site for details.
The comfort of your favorite seat is now your comfy car selling command center, thanks to Carvana.
It doesn't get any better than this.
Your favorite seat's the best spot in the house. Make it even better by entering your license plate or VIN and getting a real offer in minutes.
There really is no place like home.
And speaking of home, Carvana will pick up your car from yours after you finalize your offer. Visit Carvana.com or download the app and sell your car from your comfy place.